Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who has tuned in with us from different parts of the world, from different time zone. Thank you so much for being connected with us. FinTech and payments. It's a very emerging industry in today's world. Every day, something or others are changing. Real time payments are booming. Cryptos are all over the place. So many crypto startups are in the space. This is an industry which is worth watching. And if you are a product manager in this industry, the current trends, understanding what is happening now and how it will impact the future is very, very important. And to do so, today to share a lot of knowledge on the current trends and the future forecasting on how fintech and payment might change. Today we have someone who has great experience, who is a subject matter expert in payments, a great mentor whom you can learn a lot of things both in personal and professional life, and an awesome leader who never leaves his team, always there for his team. Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm very, very thankful and privileged to bring Mr. Manjot Sohi, Head of Payments, Western Union, to share a lot of knowledge, experience, and expertise on fintech and payments. Please welcome Manjot Sohi.
Well, thank you, Sangeeta, and thank you for the lovely introduction. You know, I'm delighted to attend this webinar and looking forward to the webinar and sharing my knowledge of payments. And as you know, I'm very passionate about payments, and I thought this would be a good time spent to share what's happening in the industry. As you have rightly pointed out, there are a number of things that are happening in the industry, shaking stuff. Payments is not what it was when I first entered payments. I mean, I kind of joke that when I started payments, all we did was how many interest rates we could charge on a payment transaction, fees. All that is out of the window. Now it is like, hey, what is the experience? What does the customer like? Can I make it a frictionless journey? So everything that I learned initially is out of the window, and it's a new era, right? Where it's all about the stickiness. And look, it changes based on what our consumer wants or a customer wants, right? So that's very important
Right.
as we dive into payments. That any industry, I would say, that the customer demands change, and we, as in the industry, need to uh, adapt to it also, right? It's not just the customer adapting; it's the organizations, fintechs, whoever it is, adapting to the customer needs as well, right?
Absolutely. And here you go, Manjot sir.
Thank you. So I thought we'll just do a quick introduction on, from a payments perspective, what is the inside out view and what is the outside in view? Meaning, what does an organization look to provide to their customers? And on the flip side, what does a customer or a client look for from an organization, right? So I was kind of looking at, I think, the top three circles. It's a mantra in payments. All we care about is speed, transparency, and cost, right? I won't say all we care about, but those are the common tenets, right? I need to deliver at a speed. I need to provide the customer the transparency, and obviously cost for the payment provider as well as the customer is important, right? From a customer perspective, as the world has changed, like I was saying, the customers are more interested in how frictionless the journey is. I don't want to go through 20 steps. I need a kind of the old word STP, but frictionless. That even means that I don't get into abandonment, right? So it's all about frictionless journey. And then obviously in conjunction with that is the experience that you can provide to the customer, right? And experience is manifold. It's just your UI experience, the loyalty experience. So those are, in my view, the five tenets looking at holistic payments from both the organization and a customer view that organization build on, right? If you could please turn to the next slide. So I tried to see how would I categorize the trends, right? And some of these are already happening. Most of the folks are aware, but as we look in the industry, there's what I would call as advent of ecosystems, right? The initial consolidation happened a few years ago. It happened, it has been happening where economies of scale, operational efficiency was driving it, right? All these major mergers, WorldPay FIS, Fiserv First Data, Global Payments TSYS, they were kind of siloed organizations doing one thing, or there was some commonality, and they were coming together to, which kind of reduced customer and also brought operational efficiency. But if we extend that on the same perspective, right? When I look at ecosystems, I think everybody would be familiar with the financial ecosystem, but there's also a facilitator ecosystem, if I may say so. When we look at a financial ecosystems, what do we mean by that, right? What we've seen is, or this is where the industry is headed, and some fintechs are in a mature state, some are getting there. But this seems to be the new trend or goal for fintechs that, hey, how do I capture a customer and then retain him and don't let him or her go, right? So that is what is driving what we call as a financial ecosystem. So, and everybody is trying to do this, right? Hey, let's offer a wallet, and then I will build up top of it. Maybe I'll give a bank account, I'll give a savings, loans, insurance. Those are the revenue generators. But then to improve the stickiness, maybe I should offer some freebies like financial planning tools and so forth. I mentioned PayPal as a super app. We'll get to that in a minute. But PayPal was also an initial propagator of this, right? Like Acorn, and by all their acquisitions, that's how they grew, right? Currently in the market, we have Revolut, Wise. Wherever you look, uh, they are adding more product and services to increase the stickiness. So once you capture this thing, and some of these are freebies, like for instance, you know crypto wallets are great, right? I have young kids, it's teenagers. They'll check their crypto wallet like 5 times a day. They have like 0.003 Ethereum or something that they bought for $100 on a loan from me. But they have that, right? That, hey, I'm going to go check my wallet. And once you're there, they don't have that, but that kind of leads to that, hey, I'm here, let me see what else is there, and maybe I'll, send money. And that's the basic premises of it. And PayPal was the initial initiator of all these, but now other companies have caught in, right? I've given an example, Revolut Wise. Revolut does more, Wise doesn't do all of it, but that's the direction I see more and more fintechs headed towards, right? If I was going to draw an analogy, this is like what legacy banks used to do, right? Hey, open up a banking service, offer wealth management, offer investment services, different paradigm, but similar concept. So,
So Manjot sir, like when you say talk about PayPal and super apps, right? I mean, I know like PayPal is emerging as super app. What do you think? Like, what can be other players who are on the same path and can become a super app in next couple of years?
I think, see the examples, right? I was trying to quote some examples. Revolut would be one. Wise is there. Any new fintech that's offering wallet is now not just looking at a wallet, they're looking at the next extension of it, right? So I think Revolut was a what do you call, a challenger bank, neobank, and they got into these other services. So their genesis was not really wallets but more of a bank accounts. um, Wise has a different model, right? Multi-currency wallets, and you can pay for bills through it. Bill payments a big thing. So I think all these fintechs will ultimately get to that journey. How much would they offer is depending on their appetite, right? Wise doesn't like crypto because of regulatory needs or regulations right now, but it's like how much in the product value chain do I want to move up? But I see this direction happening across the board for fintechs.
So there are three aspects that I see, right? One, there are established financial institutions who have been here for eras. Then you have the super apps like PayPal or Wise or yeah, Revolut who are emerging or who can be there. And then there are a lot of fintech players in
Mhm.
today's world who are small players, especially the startups. How do you see these three different ecosystem play a role, and what do you envision will happen in next 5 years down the line with all these three different categories of fintech players?
So ultimately, there'll be consolidation, right? That's what history has taught us, right? I think again, the concept will be there where you know. the fintech players are there. They're offering super apps or offering these extended services, but at certain point there will be consolidation. Right now, it's a new I wouldn't say a new concept, but fairly new, right? So what I feel is just like with banking industry, with the payments industry, there will be consolidation down the road, and or acquisitions, right? I wanted to get to the next point just to show, right, how if we have to take a case study, we look at, I mean, I look at two major companies, right? When I started in payments, Visa, MasterCard were the companies, right? PayPal was not even um, started yet. They just used to do facilitate credit debit transactions, right? I mean, kind of a good segue to the next ecosystem. Now, what have they done over the last, I would say, 10 years, right? They slowly built momentum, not only to, get broader rails, just not the credit debit rails, but also payment rails, right? Visa buying Earthport, buying Currency Cloud for FX payment rails, then buying open banking companies. Then they've started extending. So now they control end-to-end rails, right? I can send money to Sangeeta through, either through Visa rails and so forth. If I use my debit card, it's if it's a Visa branded, it's going to use their rails. But then they're also offering open banking, fraud services, and so forth, right? So these are the and all of them have now, when we used to call them network players, this and that, but they are now technology companies, right? Most,
Right.
so they're also competing in the same space, but in a different level. So
Correct.
as you can see, I think that's a good case study that both Visa and Mastercard have acquired a number of companies, and I see the same thing happening on the with the fintechs, but depending on where they are in their maturity cycle, right?
Hmm.
Um, the other thing I feel is the the challenger banks versus legacy banks. I think that's a logical question that will come up, right? Um, right now, I don't know how many, maybe 200 plus challenger banks. They keep on coming up. A lot of VC investment. It's like, hey, out of every 10 startups, 5 startups, one, 4 fails, one is successful. So there's a lot of investment in the challenger banks, neo banks. But I think from a COVID, after COVID-19, the funding is a little bit more restricted. Maybe it's opening up again. They also need to show profitability, right? Yes, growth, everything is on growth, right? So growth is doing great, but profitability is something that I'm sure they need to start showing. So that brings its own challenges. On top of that, legacy banks are not sitting idle, right? They're modernizing their tech stack. They're also moving to cloud. They're also offering more digital services. So they're also, the 510 say reduce the cost, make our customers experience our products and services. So they're also getting out there, and they will, interestingly, like a play on words, right? They'll also start challenging the challenger bank. So that's where, and they'll split it up, right? Hey, as let's say Bank
Yeah.
of America, I don't need to offer everything. Maybe I split up my divisions and spin them off, and one just focuses on consumer banking, one does commercial banking, one does wealth management, so forth, which gives them a better way to compete, right?
Right. Right.
All right. So, any thoughts, Sangeeta, before we move on to the next slide on?
No, I think, yeah, I think I'm good. We can move on to the next one.
Yeah. So this was the main, the big one, right? To me, just looking holistically at our payment fintechs and all that. Now, if I peel the onion a little bit and we go one step lower, right, like getting a little bit more deeper, what else is happening? I'm sure everybody, like you also pointed out, digital payments, right? It's all about digital payments. I think, not I think, but it's proven also, right? COVID-19 gave a kind of a big boost to digital payments, right? Folks who were not comfortable doing online shopping, e-commerce, were forced to do it, and once they did it, the experience was great, right? I think that's where the preparation of the fintechs in making sure they had that experience, frictionless journey, came of value. That once they,
Right.
you want to acquire customers one way or the other. So COVID-19 was a forced acquisition, which is good for the payments industry. You saw PayPal just go through the roof, right? From PayPal,
Exactly.
Aiden, Stripe, all the payment players, facilitators just went, their volume just picked up, right? So, um, And from a personal experience, right, I would go around. I'm still, credit cards are very close to my heart. That's how I started my payments journey. I would go into a store and I would, you know ch- there was a chip migration and then the tap and go kind of a thing, and I would just ask the store guy, hey, how many people tap? Oh, maybe once, or once a day, twice a day. And I'm like, okay, I think it's very convenient. With COVID, it just accelerated. Nobody wanted to touch the terminals anymore. They didn't want to, get their alcohol out and swipe their card. So it gave a rise to, and I do this all the time. Forget COVID's well, not gone, but subsided. I don't wipe my cards anymore. But I just love that it's frictionless. Just tap and you're done, right? Instead of inserting the chip card and so forth. So,
Right.
but with that, what I believe there was a Mastercard study, like the fraud is also rising, right? From a trends perspective, we'll have to take care of the fraud. One is the two-factor authentication, the newer 3DS happening in Europe. Then, we as product managers have to think about how do we avoid friction, because if the customer is not really used to the two-factor authentication, the decline rates go up because they don't get to authenticate in time. So there'll be other things that will come into play after effects. And we see this all the way, right, all around whenever new payment methods and new adoption happens. um, from a real-time payments, right, again, concept of digital payments, they're also, I wouldn't say they're exploding, but there is more acceptance of it, right? More and more countries are investing in the infrastructure. I think 50, 60 countries already have it. There are another 15, 20 planning it. US is now planning
Yeah.
uh, a second Fed now is getting the RTP, which will compete with TCH. The other thing that we've seen is the interoperability of RT schemes. This is like, where um, ultimately it'll be great to have networks of networks, right? So I think EBA did a pilot with TCH where they were able to connect the two systems. So that means now from Europe to US, once it gets operational, right? I think it's still a few years away. It is one real-time system connecting to the other, right? So there's no intermediary. Similarly, in Singapore, I think it's Pay Now connects to the Malaysian real-time system, and also it connects to Paytm now, right? I think it's either announced that they're going to connect. So now you got, folks like regional interoperability RT schemes that are going around, right? And the beauty of this RT schemes, and we'll talk a little bit more in the next section, it's also propagating the request for payment, right? Now, uh, you it's more of a push than a pull, and a customer is happy with it. Again, more of an authentication, but from a fintech perspective or from a payments facilitator, you get the payment faster because the customer immediately says yes to it, right? So let me take a quick pause. Any questions that have come up, or Sangeeta, if you have any question before we get into the digital currencies and the cryptos?
The one thing that I think probably a lot of players have in their mind is with this real time payments, and then new rails of payments coming in picture, and then there are a lot of companies who are in old tech stack. Do you think that upgrading of tech stacks is necessary to adapt to this real time payments in coming years? And if yes, then how do you see those, the established company
So,
to take approach this?
yeah, my rule of thumb is every application has a life cycle, right? So it's either 10 years, 15 years, you have to invest. No, I know there's legacy applications. You can argue the point, right? Hey, major banks run the same COBOL software that ran in the 70s. A different era, right? You have millions and millions of billions of dollars invested. Why would you change that? And banking transformations are not a thing you want to take up. But I think as the real time schemes come up, the integration, the last mile integration will become a challenge. There'll be more that would need to be done. So it will behoove the organizations to upgrade their stack, right? Especially move into cloud, the native cloud tech stack. And the other thing is not only from a tech stack, but also the standardization, right? Ultimately, standardization will help, ISO 20 or 22. Basically, then, if you subscribe to it, the handshakes become much easier, right? There's only so much you can do with an in payments world, you love to say there are standards but no standards, because everybody does it differently. Everybody's interpretation of the standards is different. And organizations are trying hard, right? How do we standardize so we can make the payments journey more frictionless, going back to that experience, a frictionless concept. Personally, I think companies need to invest in technology. My basic fundamental thought has always been, you do need technology to innovate, right? I mean, there's no innovation without technology. The sooner you can, obviously there's a cost to it, you have to balance all the everything, but and you don't need to do it every few years, right? Technical stacks are, they change 10, 15, 20 years. But I think organizations have to look at it. What do I need to do from a technology perspective? How do I move up the value chain, right?
And maybe that's why, the acquisitions and consolidation becomes so important, because what these small emerging startups with newer technology, it's easier to move faster for them than a legacy, and maybe the acquisition part
Sure.
becomes so crucial
Sure,
in
and then
coming.
also the innovation part, right? Why do and yeah, Visa is a classic example. Visa, Mastercard, they're like technology companies, but legacy. How do they innovate? Bring a new, acquire a new product company, whatever it is, Trink or so forth. It brings not only innovative ideas, but also the technology behind it, right? All of these are built on newer technologies, and then you can use that as a foundation to move forward. The Again, just sticking to the digital payments, right? I guess I could club digital currency and crypto one. It's a digital, but over the last 2, 3, 4 years, there is an interest by the central governments or central banks around the world to now start looking at digital currency, right? Because they've seen what crypto's done. Crypto was more of an esoteric thing. Hey, yeah, it's a good thing to play around with, but crypto's becoming a bit mainstream. um, you see a lot of companies, even PayPal, right, offering it as a, I would say, more of an investment stuff, right? Buy and hold. I'm sure they're moving towards using crypto as a mechanism to pay, but right now, uh, people want to be like crypto exchange, give the option for that. Like I said, that's what my kids do on Coinbase, even though it's 0.00 what 3. But it's that fun, right? The EFTs are coming up. um, so I think the central banks have seen that, and that's the new direction. I'm sure they in their mind the product is not digital, right? Currency. So they're listening to what the customers are doing or want, right? China is a great example. They're kind of using it during the Winter Olympics. Obviously, India has a RBI has written a white paper. US is dabbling in it. So this, I think, again, it will replace the fiat currency, but to what extent is also dependent on few factors, right? Why do people use fiat? It's has a freedom. I can use it anywhere without its enormity of using it, right? I mean, I don't
Right.
have to prove and where did I get the money. So I think those are the principles. There's an author, Richard. I follow him quite a bit on LinkedIn. Uh, Fantastic follower of digital currency, and he was raising also these points, right? Um, and flipping back to the crypto part, right? We also see a lot of the rails, right? The traditional rails. Western Union has traditional rails, so does MoneyGram, Wise, and all that. But we also see fintechs entering that area, right? Fintechs, crypto fintechs, right? And some are like Stellar is non-profit, right? I mean, they are providing the rails, stable coin. So even from a payment, cross-border payments, the rails are there and people are using it, right? I mean, obviously, right now there is that friction of converting a fiat into crypto. It rides the rails, and then from crypto to fiat again if the receiver doesn't have a crypto accounts and so forth. So there's still friction in the journey, but obviously we've come a lot in 10 years on crypto also, right, from Bitcoin days. So this, I guess the jury is still out there whether it's profitable, how much of it can be used. but definitely something that we need to follow and see. At the end of the day, what does the consumer want, right?
Yeah.
um,
So regarding this crypto, right? We all are seeing a lot of, some acceptance from the government on cryptos too.
mhm.
What do you think? There are the ancillary fintech parts, what do I mean by that? Is like, for example, compliance, risk. There are a lot of companies who just do that part for payments, right? And they are more the facilitator of payments. How do you see those companies getting impacted with this crypto? I don't think they have any idea what kind of risk they will be evaluating, what kind of compliance they will be evaluating. What is your take on that? Those companies who are more supporting
Yeah.
payments.
See, it's the evolution principle. Either you adapt, or you become history, right? Like dinosaurs. So I think personally, um it's a they cannot sit on the fence, right? Like you said, hey, I offer compliance as a service, I offer regulatory needs, sorry, regulatory regulations as a service. They need to kind of dabble in it, and I'm not saying jump full steam into it or go full steam ahead with it, but they need to have an opinion and they need to start evaluating it, right? Because if the market moves, they don't want to be 5 years behind it. If you're that much, you the payment world these days moves very quickly, right? So you don't want to become extinct because you didn't follow the trend. That's why every company, that's why I said, right, every company today is trying to dabble in crypto more from a currency perspective. So they have to do the same, right? They have to see what is good for them. Is it worthwhile? I wouldn't say, sorry, that's the wrong say, worthwhile, but what does it take to do a compliance need, right? What does it take to regulatory need? Like you mentioned cryptocurrency becoming, even governments, I think it's Honduras, they're trying to peg it as a national currency or something, right?
Yeah,
So I'm sure there has to be regulatory requirements around that they can invest in. Just like on digital currency, right? China has published white papers. India has. Similarly, they need to uh, see what needs to be done if they have to get into that, right? Or ultimately, if they have to. It may not be an option. We don't know, right? I mean, this is the beauty, right? We can't predict the future, but
true.
we should be prepared, right?
Absolutely.
All right. If we can move to the next slide, please. The last thing I think I wanted to cover was I just didn't want to just keep on speaking, but just going down the value chain, right, or peeling the onion. We started at the ecosystem level. We started at broader payments. I think one of the fundamental shift, I wouldn't say sorry fundamental, but one of the shifts that happened is um, the additional payment methods that have come over the course of last 4 or 5 years, right? I'm sure everybody is familiar with, and I wanted to highlight BNPL for a couple of reasons, right? I think, I was also a bit skeptic initially. Will it take off? Not. Klarna used to do it kind of, they started doing it with offering a loan at point of sale. But over the last 4 5, I would say last, not even 4 5, maybe 3 years, a number of companies have jumped into it, right? Affirm, OpenPay, Klarna is doing it. Uh, there's another one, Square 4 or something like that. And initially, it was more from an e-commerce perspective, right? Like a marketplace. And why would a consumer do it? Because financial freedom, right? Hey, here's a couch, $900. I can't afford it, but hey, wait, if I divide this by three, yes, I can afford 300 this month, and it's more of an installment, nothing more than an installment, interest-free installment loan. So I think it's made some of these consumers, or given them financial freedom and affordability aspect, right? Simple concept, but nobody had thought about it, right? So these guys came in and started doing it. Now everybody's dabbling it. I don't know about, I haven't been to India lately, but in the US, even the regular merchants, right? Stores, retail stores, clothing stores. You go there, they have a firm. You have a sticker on the firm. Hey, do you? And they'll ask you, hey, do you want to pay it by a firm? Apply for it. So it's become, more from an exotic to a mainstream thing, right? Like, it's as good as now, about 20 years ago, store cards were a big thing. Hey, I go to Macy's, instead of getting a credit card, it's easier for me to get a Macy's card, retail card. I can control what I spend and so forth, right? um, from a customer's perspective, obviously it's given affordability aspect. From a merchant's perspective, the stickiness has come into play, right? It kind of avoids the card abandonment. Hey, I can't afford it, but as soon as I see this, oh yeah, yeah, why don't I do? Card abandonment in retail is everybody looks for a solution, right? You talk to a retail merchant or you talk to a fintech PayPal's of the world, they want to reduce the card abandonment, and I think this is a direction they're headed into, right? It's a very creative customer acquisition. I see it as a customer acquisition strategy. Once you apply for a firm, you can redo it. And interestingly, on the flip side, the traditional card issuers, if you look at your bank statement now online, whether be it Citi or Chase, they will highlight a big ticket transaction and say, hey, do you want to pay this in 4 installments? Amazon does it all the time when you try to buy it, and backed by Chase, obviously. To them, it's not a customer acquisition, it's become a customer retention thing, right? I don't want my customers to move away to these newer players and so forth. Why can't I do it? And I can cut the middleman, right? The acquirers are the middlemen here, right? So that is interesting concept. And I think, we will see more, I won't say explosion, but newer payment methods coming into play, right? RFP, we talked about request for payment. QR code is there, very popular in India.
Very
uh,
much.
and that's how PayPal is also getting, that you don't, all you do is put a QR code and pay. Starbucks,
Yeah.
I have my Chase card loaded, but all I do is click a button, QR code comes, click, you know. So QR codes are popular and ease, right? I don't even have to carry my plastic. Um, Interestingly, again, I've been in the industry long. For last 20 years, I've been hearing, oh, credit cards are going to go away. Uh, but who's going to provide the underlying loan vehicle?
Rails.
Right? Because credit
Yeah.
cards as a form factor will go away, right? I only want to carry my phone now, right? I have Samsung card on Samsung Pay. I have my Chase card loaded, Starbucks QR card. So these are the innovations, right? Yes, you need a credit card, but it's become more as a number than as a form factor, right? Pay on delivery, again, when I was a kid in India growing up, we used to do COD, cash on delivery. Similar concept, right? That, hey, still remember buying books and paying like whatever 10, 15 rupees when I got it from the post office, but very similar concept that, hey, I pay on delivery. So I think from a product, again, switching back to the product management, um, obviously innovation has come from a product side, right? So this is where you would want to focus. Hey, what do people really want to do, right? And I think payment methods is one area that will keep on growing. What they would be in the future, I don't know, but there will be others also that come up.
So regarding this, pay later, and then a lot of these credit cards. There are a lot of other, especially in Indian ecosystem, I can say, like so many fintechs are coming who are giving loans, right?
Mhm.
Take a loan, pay after 30 days, 90 days. There is loan schemes for students, for merchants. Bharat Pay is a great example. They're excelling on giving loans to the merchants. Do you think so many players are putting money out in the market and lending to the people? Do you think we are kind of like, are we risking putting so much money out just to give loan and make loans easy? How do you see the repayment of those loans? Do you think there is a risk over there?
Definitely, I think there could be a saturation, right? I mean, I don't know if there'll be a crisis, but if I draw an analogy, that's what happened with the housing market in the US. If you look back in 2007, 2008, right? What was the underlying factor? Very similar. Loans were easy to come, income verification was not that stringent, and you could get a loan. Nobody cared about LTV, income verification. All they cared was, let me sell a loan, right? So
Yeah.
I'm projecting the income I'll get from the loan. Now we know what happened, right? The market crashed, the housing market crashed, and on the flip side, what happened was they became very strict on loans, right? Then the flip side, right? Hey, either I'm on the left side of the spectrum, now I'm on the right side. Now, if the uh, what do you call, the availability of funds or loans is that free, I think it could lead to some kind of a crisis, right? That's where I think your question earlier, right? Hey, there are companies that specialize in risk manage or risk
Exactly.
risk compliance. You have to have, when we talk about payments, it's not just moving money from A to B, right? It's all payments are a major component of payment is extending a loan, right? You look at credit cards and so forth, bank loans, lending. It is you're trying to facilitate or increase the buying power of a consumer, right? In good faith that, hey, I've done my study. So I think, back to your question, Sangeeta, definitely, I think that's a risk you carry. But um, any bank should or would have a good risk management policies and also underwriting policies when they extend loans, right? Obviously, you'll always have the bad loans, but it's like, do I go with an 80-20 rule, or do I go with a 50-50? So I think there has to be a balancing act when you're extending loans, right?
Perfect.
Okay. I think from a trends perspective, I know there are a lot more, right? We could talk about, but these are the major trends that I believe are happening in the market. And again, we cannot predict the future, but this is where the industry is headed, right? Or this is what the players are doing today. Um, that's kind of innovating the payments market, right? Accelerating it, and so forth, right? A lot of innovation on, I would say, in the digital payments, cross border payments, and so forth. That's happening today. If we don't have any questions, we can go to the next slide, last one. Hopefully, folks are not bored. I guess the question that you posed to me was, Sangeeta, was that, hey, let's talk about the trends. And being a product manager, you've been a product manager. How do we keep current, right? I have a very basic, fundamental thought around it, right? Product management should not be complex. Yes, the problems we try to solve could be complex, but the basic tenets or principles of product management is always keep it simple, right? Any project manager, will talk about desirability, usability, viability, right? And there's a yin yang. I know when we were in school, we were taught, hey, here are the three concentric circles. We only want to get the products out where there's an intersection of desirability, usability, viability. Great. But I think there has to be some leeway, right? There's a yin yang. Hey, but at the end of the day, my recommendations, suggestions to product managers is, hey, look, follow the trends. More importantly, focus on your customer, right? You need to know what your customer wants, right? That's that desirability aspect, right? Desirability, the usability. Yes, you need to get into the viability also. um, we should not do something for sake of doing, right? It is the KYC part, right? Know your customer, know your audience, right? Know your, who are you trying to sell to, right? um, to me, brand awareness is a critical aspect, right? I mean, all the
Hmm.
organizations kind of focus on it. So as a product manager, the many flavors of product managers. Some are upfront, doing on the digital aspect. There are technical project managers, or sorry, product managers. But as a product manager, any product manager, right? I think this goes with the customer, right? You need to make your potential customers aware of your brand. Why are you there? What is your mission? What is your purpose, right? I think that's very key, right? Brand awareness.
Right.
um, since I talk about customers so much, right? I mean, the center of universe. What are the key takeaways, right? I just said, know your customer. I think the other thing, fundamental thing is, it's very hard to acquire a customer. hard meaning in terms of effort, economics, meaning cost of acquisition and so forth. As product managers, we need to make sure we retain our customers, right? I mean, there are certain companies that do a fabulous job of retaining, because it's a very simple equation. If you lose 50% of your customers, then next year you have to gain 100% of new customers to make up the gap, right? If you just want to be steady state. So retention is very important. Now, I know these are more of marketing strategies, but why am I saying this from a product manager, right? Because a product manager has to think about it. How can I retain the customer? When we talked about the financial ecosystem, that's a retention policy. Hey, I'm going to offer you a wallet. You may use it few times, you'll get bored, right? I mean, I know we youngsters get bored and they want to do something new, but I'm going to give you on top of that another loan. I'm going to give you crypto. Why don't you call me for financial advice? Maybe I'll give you advice on other. So I think those are the products that a product manager has to think, from a retention perspective.
Yeah.
And underlying that is um, fundamental belief, right? We have to invest in analytics. How do I get all these results or analysis of how's my brand doing? You need to measure your product, so not only from a customer but also performance. I think as a product manager, things are moving so fast right now, right? That you need to invest in analytics. It's an analytics given game. You look at all the machine learnings, AI products coming up on there. So it is worth the investment to have a good analytics um, component within your product teams, because you'll have so many things to cover, right? So I don't know if that,
Yeah.
how you feel about, but I just think I am. People think of product management as a complex. I think keep it simple. Complexity is more in what you want to offer to the product, but if you slice to your customers, if you slice and dice it, I think it makes it easier. Right?
Yeah, I think you hit a lot of things on the right, because there is always a confusion: project management and product management. Project management is more about, to my understanding, process and all, and so people think like, okay, I'm more process oriented, and this I can become a product management, or you are a product manager, but you're focusing more on process and making things streamlined, which is important. But as you said, like, this is a product manager needs to understand market. A product manager needs to understand the branding. A product manager needs to understand analytics and what the customer is asking. So I think it's a very big broad role where a product manager needs to understand a holistic view of why you are building this product, and if you are building this product, then how you are going to take it to the market. So a lot of people think like, product growth roles or product marketing roles are separate and product management is separate. But I think if you see the broader umbrella of product management, then marketing, sales, analytics, everything falls under that. And a product manager needs to have that 360-degree view to understand what to develop
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
satisfy the customer.
So I have an analogy, right? In half jest, right? One's a thinker, the other one's a doer. So you can tell me which is a thinker, who's a doer, right? One is a rodent. I'm thinking of a statue thinking, but jokes apart, right? Um, I think to your point, right? Sometimes we just focus on the product. We are not looking at that whole 360-degree, right? Starting from a customer. To me, a well defined product management group is you have your product managers focusing on the customer experience, your entry point, your core product, and the performance, which is analytics. I think these are the three components you have to have, and you need not be expert in all of them, but that's the, I would say, fundamental tenets for a product management, right? So we can think more, right? Hey, what are the numbers doing? I'll spin the numbers in my head. But you're right, sometimes, even I made that mistake like few minutes ago. I said project and I immediately corrected, no, product management, right? I mean, the words are so close to each other.
That's right.
But fundamentally, we can't think of a product manager as a project manager, right? A project manager, process, keeping things on track. product manager is thinking outside the box. What do I do? The project manager, in my view, keeps the product manager within the boundaries, right? Meaning you
Right.
have to deliver. Where does that component come? That's when you rely on the project managers, right?
Correct. Correct. And I hope, like, just to throw out there, my team, we are also a startup. I hope they are also listening to this conversation, because when we talk internally, we keep going about this, like, what is the customer saying? Where customer, which features in the product the
Mhm.
customer is spending more time? So we are using those analytics, and I hope my team is listening to this and can, understand how to build, because a lot of time we get into that same trouble where my engineering team wants to build something which has nothing to do with their customer. So the typical challenges that we face. So hope my team is listening to this conversation.
Very well said, right? Also, I have to caution, right? We cannot do uh, paralysis by analysis, right? You cannot just keep on analyzing. Also, you have to set your, hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is where it comes. Let's go do it, right? So,
Right.
as engineers, right, I was I started as a programmer, right, long time ago. We're itching to do stuff, right? Why would I want to sit idle? Let me program and all that. So engineers want to build, right? Like I said,
Yes.
product managers want to think, engineers want to build, and poor project managers just trying to control everybody, right? Hey, how do I make sure I'm tasked with delivering what I have been asked to, right? So I bless their soul, right? It's not an easy job, right? A project management. So there's a distinct between product and project manager, right?
Absolutely. Well, great. I think I have all the questions that I wanted to ask to you, Manjot sir. I think Nilsson, if you come on board, and then if there is any question from the audience, you can start that with Manjot. So the first question is, what can be an ideal collaboration between crypto and central banks or central government?
In my view, I think the central banks can learn, more. How do they propagate digital currency? They're new to it, right? Crypto guys have been here 15 years and so forth. The maybe one of the key things I talked about is, right, why does fiat work well? The being it anonymous, right? The anonymous factor. Crypto has that security mechanism. I won't say anonymous, right? You can't just open it up and have folks use it for ulterior motives. But I think the security aspect, right? Crypto is very secure. I think those are things that would come into play when you have digital currency, because anything that's digital, the fraud will rise, right? We
Right.
always say that the fraudsters are more smarter than the folks implementing stuff, right? So similarly, I think that there may be hesitancy between the central banks. They don't see crypto as mainstream. They see more as folks who like to run stuff on their own. But there are enough synergies that there are things that central banks could learn from crypto, because at the end of the day, crypto is also digital currency, right? It's just not issued by a central government. So there are a lot of synergies between the two, and a collaboration would be fruitful for both the sides, right?
Perfect. Next question, please. Is it possible for a new fintech player to have a serious share in the saturated global payments industry?
Definitely, otherwise we won't have all the new fintechs, right? It's um see, at the end of the day, even mature fintechs sometimes fall back, right? And they go out of
Yes.
business. I mean, legacy players, right? Um, the key is uh, you need to know what do you want to do in the payments, right? Payments industry is vast, right? We only covered the actual payments aspect of it. There are supporting things, fraud, compliance, other aspects, right? So it is very important to see what do I, as a new fintech player, want to play in. And this is true for any industry, right? I know, any industry, like I'm sure when you started your startup, Sangeeta, uh, same questions, right? Hey, this is, other people are doing very similar concepts. How do I become successful? I think the key
Correct.
is to find your sweet spot, right? If you can, you will grow. And that's why you still have investors investing. Yeah, maybe after COVID-19 some of the investors may have dried up, but uh, they're looking for the next Alipay or Ant or PayPal. So definitely there is a play here in the payments industry.
And as you said, right, about the share, like if there is going to be consolidation and acquisition, then definitely at the end these players are going to get their share, maybe in different way, indirect way,
Yeah,
but
I mean, again, serious share is like, you look at money remittance companies, right? Everybody's got like 5%, 10%, 20%, and so forth. You'll get a share. Now how you grow on it depends on what you do with the
that's right.
product. Yeah.
All right, next question, please. Is there scope for blockchain integration popularity in fintech digital payments world? Interesting.
Yeah, I would think this would be, from a blockchain component in the payments. When I think of payments, it's more on the crypto side, right? Built on a blockchain technology. Um, Definitely, I think yes. From a payments, we kind of talked about the crypto aspect of it. Broadly, from a blockchain aspect, um, I would say all the peripheral systems, surrounding the payments, were the documentation part of it, the loans, right? And the banks have been kind of delving into for number of years, right? Last 6 7 years, how can I use blockchain technology to securely send financial documents, right? It could be loan papers and so forth. So yes, I mean, both ways, right? The blockchain for maybe document management, but definitely the crypto part of it, right?
Absolutely. And that's what we are already seeing. It's happening slowly, steadily. Digital payments are getting into the blockchain integration. So, then, thank you for that. Next question, please. What is the biggest challenge for companies in fintech domain as of now?
Good question. I'm trying to think. There are many challenges. What is the biggest challenge? I think is, um, I would say customer retention, right? I mean, there there are challenges, right? Technology challenges there. If you ask me, I think the focus is they need to grow the market share, right? Like somebody just asked, how can I have a serious share of the market? So to grow the market share, how do I retain my customers? How do I attract but retain? Nothing brings you more value than retained customer, right? So, what are the strategies? I think for me, that's the biggest challenge. I'm setting aside the technology challenges, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's the biggest, challenge for me. If I'm a new entrant, how do I attract customers? If I'm a legacy, how do I make sure my customers don't leave me for a new shiny toy? Right? Excuse me.
And especially like because this space is getting crowded, right? Every other player has something to offer. So definitely customer retention is going to be a very, very,
Like I said, right?
challenge.
I don't have the stats, but I was looking if I had it noted down. Challenger banks, right? 200
Hmm.
plus. um, how does one, so that's also a challenge, right? When I say customer retention acquisition, how do, as a consumer, do I decide between two challenger banks, right? And that becomes a challenge for the company, that how do I offer Sangeeta something that my competitor is not, right? At the end of the day, if you're looking for a banking business, bank account is a bank account, can I give you more interest rate and all that, right? But then they go beyond that. Hey, maybe if I personalize the services, maybe on her birthday I send her, a bouquet of flowers. So the customer acquisition and retention is the biggest challenge in any industry, right? So if you can't do it, you're going to fail, right?
And especially like just want to highlight like since I'm back in India, like the P2P transactions has so many apps, and I think I myself in my phone have 5 apps, all different pays: Bharat Pay, Phone Pay, Google Pay, Paytm. I have everything, and whichever whoever wants, I start pay for that. So that's a clear example. Like one person is having using so many apps, so there is no loyalty and
If
customer
I was
retention
Bharat
is.
Pay, right, I would like, I don't want Sangeeta to use any other of the, I want that wallet share, right? Why am I, let's assume you're splitting it five ways, 20%. I want more than 20. I want 80%, right? So how do I do that, right? I mean, that's what you want to solve for.
Right, right, he said. Um, any other question, guys? What can be the challenges for fintech and bank collaboration? I don't understand
So
this
I
completely.
think, that there's a one fundamental difference, right? When I say banks, I'm assuming it's legacy banks, right? Fintechs like to move quickly. Banks
Hmm.
deliberate and take just the speed, right? If I may say so, right?
Correct.
So to me, that's a challenge. But how do you overcome is what we've seen: acquisitions, right? Legacy company buying fintech companies accelerate their innovation. But when you collaborate, it's just a different speed, right? And nothing wrong with it. Banks have to answer to their shareholders. They have regulatory compliance to meet. They just cannot make decisions on the fly. Like I said initially also, right, when you go public and you're a public entity, that's when the playing field kind of levels, right? Now I have to follow all the regulations. I have to report to the market, report to my shareholders, and so forth. So challenges can be manifold, but the to set the context, right, how do I kind of in collaboration marry that speed, right? As a fintech, you're going to move at 100 miles an hour, and as a bank, you're going to so maybe that's why banks have their own innovation center, right? That can, like a digital center innovation, that hey, it's a sandlot, they can go play and come with innovative products, bring in fintechs to collaborate and so forth.
Absolutely. Any last question? I think we have 2 more minutes. That's all. Great. So we have done all the questions. Manjot, thank you so much for taking time. I know it's late in San Francisco. A lot of audience have plugged in from India and South Asian region. So thank you so much for taking time and sharing all this information, helping people to be more educated towards the modern challenges, trends, and how can we be more vigilant towards what's going to happen in future. Thank you so much once again.
No, I love this chat, right? Thank you for the opportunity as well. It's been great questions. As we can see, our folks are focused on the crypto part, the fintech part. So thank you for the opportunity, and would love to come back again and chat again on a payments, maybe a different payment subject sometime later, right? So thank you so much, Sangeeta.
Yeah, absolutely. And this 40 minutes reminded me a year back how we used to chat, on
I
several
know.
things. So,
One product manager to another product manager, right? So,
absolutely.
all right.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great night, and we'll talk soon again.
Thank you very
Take
much.
care.
Take care. Bye bye.